Karen Simmons was the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, HOA, in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maple Grove. With an iron fist and an unyielding sense of entitlement, she enforced the HOA's arcane rules with fanatical devotion, much to the chagrin of her long-suffering neighbors. One sunny afternoon, as Karen was surveying her domain from the front porch of her meticulously manicured home, she witnessed a scene that would spark a chain of events beyond her wildest dreams. A military officer, clad in his crisp uniform, was being roughly escorted to a police car by a burly officer, his face twisted in a mix of confusion and indignation. Karen's eyes narrowed, and a sly grin spread across her face. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance to flex her self-proclaimed authority and demonstrate her power to the world. Without hesitation, she marched across the street, her designer heels clicking furiously against the pavement. "Excuse me, officer," she shouted, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "What seems to be the problem here?" The police officer, caught off guard by her sudden intervention, paused and turned to face Karen. "Ma'am, this is a military matter. I'm afraid I can't discuss the details with you." Karen's eyes flashed with determination. "Oh, but I think you can," she said, her tone laced with a hint of condescension. "You see, I happen to be the president of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association, and I simply cannot allow this kind of disturbance in my neighborhood." The military officer, who had been silently observing the exchange, suddenly spoke up. "Ma'am, I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding. I am Colonel James Harrington, and I'm on official military business." Karen's eyes widened, and she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins. "Colonel Harrington, is it?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Well, then, I simply must insist that you come with me to discuss this matter further." The police officer, sensing the growing tension, tried to interject. "Ma'am, I'm afraid I can't just release him on your say-so. He's under arrest." Karen's smile widened, and she raised her hand, silencing the officer. "Oh, well, but I think you can," she said, her voice laced with a hint of authority. "You see, I have a direct line to the Pentagon, and I'm quite certain they would be very interested to hear about this misunderstanding." The police officer's face paled, and he glanced nervously at the colonel. Karen, sensing her advantage, continued, "Now, unless you want to explain to your superiors why you were interfering with a high-ranking military officer, I suggest you release him into my custody immediately." The officer hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly released his grip on the colonel's arm. Karen's smile widened as she turned to the bewildered officer. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Now, if you'll excuse us, the colonel and I have some matters to discuss." With that, she linked her arm through the colonel's and led him away, leaving the stunned police officer in her wake. As Karen led the colonel away from the scene, she couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph coursing through her veins. She had just demonstrated her power, and the thrill of it was intoxicating. "I must say, Colonel Harrington, I'm quite impressed with your cooperation," she said, her tone dripping with false humility. The colonel, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I appreciate your assistance, but I really must insist on returning to my duties. I'm sure this was all just a misunderstanding." Karen's grip on his arm tightened, and she shot him a pointed look. "Nonsense, Colonel. I simply can't allow one of our nation's finest to be treated in such a manner. As the president of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association, it's my duty to ensure that all of our residents are treated with the utmost respect." The colonel, sensing that resistance would be futile, sighed and allowed himself to be led back to Karen's immaculately maintained home. As they entered the pristine living room, Karen gestured for him to take a seat on the plush leather sofa. "Now, Colonel, I'm sure you're wondering why I insisted on bringing you here," she said, settling into a nearby armchair. The colonel nodded, his brow furrowed in confusion. "I must admit, I am a bit perplexed by all of this." Karen's lips curled into a coy smile. "Well, you see, Colonel, I've been keeping a close eye on the goings-on in our neighborhood, and I couldn't help but notice that you've been a frequent visitor to the home of one of my fellow residents." The colonel's eyes widened, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, ma'am. Karen's smile widened, and she leaned forward, her eyes glinting with mischief. Oh, but I think you do, Colonel. You see, I have a certain knack for keeping tabs on the comings and goings of my neighbors. And let's just say that your visits to the Wilsons' residence have caught my attention. The Colonel's face paled, and he cleared his throat nervously. I'm not sure I understand what you're implying, Mrs. Simmons. Karen's expression darkened, and she leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming against the armrest. Let's just say that I have a certain interest in keeping our neighborhood free from any unsavory activities. And I can't help but wonder if your visits to the Wilsons might be connected to something a bit more. Sinister. The Colonel's eyes widened with alarm, and he opened his mouth to speak, but Karen raised her hand, silencing him. Now, Colonel, let's not jump to any conclusions, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. I'm simply here to help, and I think I might just have the perfect solution to your little problem. The Colonel's brow furrowed as he studied Karen's expression, trying to discern her true intentions. And what exactly do you have in mind? Mrs. Simmons. Karen's lips curled into a smile, and she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous intensity. Well, Colonel, I happen to have a special relationship with some very influential people in the Pentagon. I'm sure they would be most interested to hear about your extracurricular activities. The Colonel's face drained of color, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mrs. Simmons, I assure you there is nothing untoward going on. I am simply carrying out my official duties, and I would appreciate it if you would refrain from interfering. Karen's smile widened, and she shook her head. Oh, but you see, Colonel, I'm afraid I can't do that. You see, I have responsibility to this community, and I simply can't turn a blind eye to any questionable behavior, no matter who it involves. The Colonel's eyes narrowed, and he leaned forward, his voice laced with a hint of desperation. Mrs. Simmons, I implore you, please don't do anything that could jeopardize my career or my family's well-being. I'm a loyal servant of this country, and I've dedicated my life to protecting its citizens. Karen's expression softened, and she reached out to pat the Colonel's hand. Why, of course, Colonel. I understand completely. That's why I'm here to help you. You see, I have an plan that will ensure your discretion remains intact, and your career remains untarnished. The Colonel eyed her warily, his mind racing with the implications of her words. And what exactly does this plan of yours entail? Karen's smile widened, and she leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming against the armrest. Well, Colonel, it's quite simple, really. You see, I happen to have a direct line to the Pentagon, and I'm quite certain that a few well-placed phone calls could clear up this whole misunderstanding with the police. The Colonel's eyes widened, and he leaned forward, his voice lowered to a whisper. Mrs. Simmons, are you suggesting that you can influence the Pentagon to intervene on my behalf? Karen nodded, her expression one of feigned innocence. Why, of course, Colonel. After all, it's the least I can do for one of our nation's finest. And in return, I simply ask that you continue to discreetly visit the Wilsons' residence, and keep me informed of any developments. The Colonel's brow furrowed, and he shook his head. Mrs. Simmons, I'm afraid I can't accept your offer. My loyalty is to my country, and I won't compromise that for any personal gain. Karen's expression darkened, and she leaned forward, her voice lowering to a menacing growl. Well, I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Colonel. You see, I have an of influence in this community, and I'm not afraid to use it. So I suggest you reconsider my generous offer, or you might find yourself in an world of trouble. The Colonel's heart raced, and he knew that he was trapped. Karen Simmons was a force to be reckoned with, and he had no choice but to play by her rules. The Colonel sat in stunned silence, his mind racing with the implications of Karen's threat. He knew that he couldn't afford to jeopardize his career or his family's well-being, but the thought of working with this conniving woman made his skin crawl. Mrs. Simmons, I must insist that we find a more ethical solution to this situation. The colonel said, his voice strained. Karen's lips curled into a wicked smile. Oh, but Colonel, this is the ethical solution. You see, I'm simply trying to protect our community from any unsavory activities. And in return, all I ask is a little discretion on your part. The colonel's brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. And what exactly do you mean by discretion? Karen's smile widened, and she leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming against the armrest. Well, Colonel, it's quite simple, really. All I ask is that you continue to visit the Wilsons' residence and keep me informed of any developments. In return, I'll make sure that your little problem with the police is taken care of. The colonel's heart sank, and he shook his head. Mrs. Simmons, I'm afraid I can't accept your offer. My loyalty is to my country, and I won't compromise that for any personal gain. Karen's expression darkened, and she leaned forward, her voice lowering to a menacing growl. Oh, but I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Colonel. You see, I have a lot of influence in this community, and I'm not afraid to use it. So, I suggest you reconsider my generous offer, or you might find yourself in a world of trouble. The colonel's mind raced, desperately searching for a way out of this situation. He knew that Karen Simmons was a force to be reckoned with, and he couldn't afford to cross her. But the thought of betraying his country and his principles made his stomach churn. Just then, a thought struck him. Mrs. Simmons, I must insist that we find a lawful solution to this problem. Perhaps we could discuss this matter with the proper authorities and find a way to resolve this issue without compromising anyone's integrity. Karen's eyes narrowed, and she shook her head. I'm afraid that's not an option, Colonel. You see, I have a special relationship with some very influential people in the Pentagon, and I'm quite certain that a few well-placed phone calls could clear up this whole misunderstanding with the police. The colonel's heart sank, and he knew that he was trapped. Karen Simmons had him cornered, and he had no choice but to play by her rules. Very well, Mrs. Simmons, the colonel said, his voice resigned. I'll cooperate with your clan . But I want to make it clear that I'm doing this under duress, and that I have no intention of betraying my country or my principles. Karen's lips curled into a triumphant smile. Excellent, Colonel. I knew you'd see it my way. Now, let's get started, shall we? With a heavy heart, the colonel followed Karen's lead as she dialed a series of numbers on her phone. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of unease as he listened to her navigate the bureaucratic maze of the Pentagon, using her connections and influence to orchestrate his release. As the conversation unfolded, the colonel couldn't help but admire Karen's cunning and manipulation. She spoke with an unwavering confidence, dropping names and making veiled threats that seemed to carry an unseen weight. It was clear that she had built a formidable network of allies and informants, all of whom were willing to bend to her will. When the call finally ended, Karen turned to the colonel with a triumphant grin. Well, Colonel, it seems your little misunderstanding with the police has been cleared up. You're free to go, but don't forget our little arrangement. The colonel nodded reluctantly, his mind racing with the implications of what he had just agreed to. He knew that he was walking a fine line, balancing his duty to his country with the demands of this relentless HOA president. As he made his way back to his car, the colonel couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. He knew that he was now beholden to Karen Simmons, and that any misstep could have devastating consequences for his career and his family. But even as he mulled over the potential fallout, a glimmer of hope began to take root in his mind. Perhaps, if he played his cards right, he could find a way to turn the tables on this conniving woman. With a renewed sense of determination, the colonel climbed into his car and headed back to the Wilsons' residence, his mind already buzzing with a plan. Meanwhile, Karen watched from her porch, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She had just demonstrated the full extent of her power, and she reveled in the thrill of it. But deep down, she knew that this was only the beginning. As the colonel disappeared down the street, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets he might be hiding, and what other opportunities might arise for her to assert her dominance. As the sun began to set, Karen Simmons retreated into her home, already plotting her next move. She was determined to maintain her grip on the community, and nothing was going to stand in her way. Over the next few days, the colonel dutifully carried out his part of the bargain, continuing his visits to the Wilsons' residence and discreetly reporting back to Karen. Despite his growing discomfort with the arrangement, he knew that he had little choice but to play along if he wanted to keep his career and his family safe. Meanwhile, Karen closely monitored the colonel's activities, her gaze ever vigilant as she patrolled the neighborhood. She took great satisfaction in the power she wielded, knowing that she held the colonel's fate in her hands. One afternoon, as the colonel was leaving the Wilsons' home, he found Karen waiting for him in the driveway, her arms crossed over her chest. "Ah, Colonel Harrington, just the man I was hoping to see," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The colonel tensed, sensing that something was amiss. "Mrs. Simmons, what can I do for you?" Karen's lips curled into a sly smile. "Well, Colonel, I've been keeping a close eye on your activities, and I must say I'm quite impressed with your dedication to our little arrangement." The colonel's heart sank, and he knew that he was once again at the mercy of this relentless woman. However, Karen continued, her expression darkening. "I can't help but feel that there's something about the whole situation. Tell me, Colonel, are you sure there's nothing else you've been up to?" The colonel swallowed hard, his mind racing. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're implying, Mrs. Simmons." Karen's eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, her voice lowering to a menacing whisper. "Oh, but I think you do, Colonel. You see, I have my ways of obtaining information, and I've been hearing some interesting rumors about your involvement in a certain clandestine operation." The colonel's blood ran cold, and he knew that he had to tread carefully. "Mrs. Simmons, I can assure you that I'm not involved in any clandestine operations. My loyalty is to my country, and I would never do anything to jeopardize that." Karen's smile widened, and she shook her head. "Oh, but I'm afraid that's not good enough, Colonel. You see, I've invested a lot of time and effort into our little arrangement, and I won't have you jeopardizing it with your indiscretions. The colonel's mind raced, desperately searching for a way out of this impossible situation. He knew that he couldn't risk exposing his involvement in the classified operation, but he also couldn't afford to cross Karen Simmons. "Mrs. Simmons, I can assure you that I've been completely discreet in my dealings with the Wilsons. I have no intention of betraying our arrangement, I can promise you that." Karen's expression darkened, and she took another step closer, her eyes narrowing. "Well, Colonel, I certainly hope that's the case. Because if I ever find out that you've been lying to me, you can be sure that I'll make your life a living hell." With that, she turned and strode away, leaving the colonel to stare after her, his heart pounding in his chest. As the colonel watched Karen Simmons disappear down the street, a sense of dread washed over him. He knew that he was treading on dangerous ground, with this relentless HOA president holding the power to potentially destroy his career and his family's well-being. Forcing himself to take a deep breath, the colonel climbed into his car and drove back to his own home, his mind racing with the implications of his predicament. He knew that he couldn't afford to make a single misstep, lest he risk facing the wrath of Karen Simmons. Once inside the safety of his own home, the colonel paced back and forth, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. He had to find a way to break free from this arrangement, but he knew that it wouldn't be easy. Karen Simmons had him firmly in her grip, and she wasn't about to let go without a fight. Suddenly, an idea began to take shape in the colonel's mind. He knew that he couldn't confront Karen directly. That would only play into her hands. Instead, he had to find a way to undermine her power, to expose her manipulations and her deceptions. With a renewed sense of purpose, the colonel set to work, making a series of discreet phone calls and reaching out to his trusted contacts within the military and government. He knew that he was taking a huge risk, but he also knew that he couldn't afford to let Karen Simmons continue to wield her power unchecked. As the days passed, the colonel carefully built his case, gathering evidence and building a solid foundation for his plan. He knew that he was walking a fine line, but he also knew that he had no choice but to take this risk. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The colonel, his heart pounding in his chest, made his way to the local police station, armed with the evidence he had gathered. He knew that he was putting everything on the line, but he also knew that he had to do whatever it took to bring Karen Simmons down. As the colonel presented his case to the police, he could feel the tension in the room rising. Karen Simmons, it seemed, had a long history of abusing her power and manipulating the system to her own advantage. The colonel's evidence was damning, and the police were quick to act. Within hours, Karen Simmons found herself under arrest, her carefully constructed web of lies and deceit unraveling around her. The colonel watched, a sense of satisfaction and relief washing over him, as the woman who had held his life in her hands was finally brought to justice. As the dust settled, the colonel knew that he had taken a huge risk, but he also knew that it had been worth it. He had stood up to the HOA Karen and had emerged victorious, and he knew that his actions would have far-reaching consequences for the entire community. In the aftermath of Karen Simmons' arrest, the Maple Grove community was thrown into a state of shock and disbelief. For years, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA had wielded her power with an iron fist, bullying and manipulating her neighbors to serve her own agenda. But now, with her true colors exposed, the residents of Maple Grove were left to pick up the pieces and rebuild their shattered trust. The colonel, having played a pivotal role in bringing Karen down, found himself hailed as a hero by his fellow residents. His actions had not only freed him from the clutches of the HOA tyrant, but had also liberated the entire community from her oppressive rule. As the investigation into Karen's misdeeds unfolded, it became clear that her influence had run far deeper than anyone could have imagined. She had used her connections within the Pentagon and local government to maintain her grip on the neighborhood, manipulating the system to serve her own interests. The colonel's decision to come forward with his evidence had been a courageous one, and it had paid off in spades. In the weeks that followed, the residents of Maple Grove came together to rebuild their community, determined to ensure that no one would ever again wield the kind of unchecked power that Karen Simmons had enjoyed. New leadership was elected for the HOA, and strict controls were put in place to prevent any future abuses of authority. As for the colonel, he found himself in the unexpected position of being a local celebrity. His bravery and integrity had inspired his neighbors, and many now looked to him as a beacon of hope and a symbol of the power of standing up against corruption. But even as the colonel basked in the glow of his newfound popularity, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He knew that his actions had set in motion a chain of events that would have far-reaching consequences, both for him and for the community as a whole. The battle with Karen Simmons had been won, but he knew that the war for the soul of Maple Grove was far from over. As the sun set on the once sleepy neighborhood, the colonel sat on his porch, contemplating the road ahead. He knew that his work was not yet done, and that he would need to remain vigilant in the face of any future challenges to the integrity of his community. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, knowing that he had stood up to the HOA Karen and had emerged victorious.